Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Good news, good news. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio called the Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, Mr. Sergei Lavrov. I think an amateur called and professional. But hey, what do I know? What did they talk about? First things first, it is very, very important that finally these guys open the channels of communication, which are the United States of America. The Europeans scramble for attention. Macron tries to put together a summit on Monday for the Europeans to see what's going on. Why? Because they are left out. All right, so let's see what Marco Rubio and Sergei Lavrov spoke about during this phone call initiated by the American Secretary of State. The first article that I have ready here is from Russia Today. Lavrov and Rubio hold phone call. Russia's foreign minister and the US Secretary of State agreed to maintain regular contact, including preparations for a Trump-Putin meeting. After this, I will make a video because I already know the time and I know the venue where these negotiations, the meeting, the summit between Putin and Trump will occur. They already are working on it. They sent a delegation over there. Who's going to be in the delegation? Watch my next video. In the meantime, let's see what these guys talked about. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Saturday. According to Moscow, the two diplomats agreed to maintain regular contact in an effort to eventually lift unilateral sanctions that have hindered, and I'm quoting, mutual beneficial economic cooperation. Do you understand this? So this is a admission of stupidity. That is, we impose sanctions on you, but hey, those sanctions hurt us as well. I spoke about this in many of my videos, and Germany, I think, was the most affected with this garbage. But hey, what do I care, right? Well, they have the Chancellor, Mr. Scholz. He knows what he's talking about. Or the baboon, how do I call her, infantile Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister of used to be Great Germany. The call came just days after Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump held a phone conversation, marking their first known direct interaction since the escalation of the Ukraine conflict in February 2022. According to a statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry, Lavrov and Rubio reaffirmed their commitment to restoring, I'm quoting, a mutually respectful dialogue and addressing long-standing issues in Russian-American relations. Excellent. Now this is the reset button. You remember the imbecile Clinton when she came with a reset button with Lavrov, and when she was a Secretary of State, and Lavrov was like, this kindergarten again. Anyway, excellent. Mutually respectful dialogue. So who won? Remember, the Russians were supposed to be subordinates, like the Germans, the Brits, the French, not the Israelis, the Romanians, like plantation guys. Russia said, no, we don't agree with that statute. We want different statutes right here. We want to be equal as you. Oh my God, no, you are talking. What is the status meant we're going to be the big boys on this planet. Why this planet? Hopa topa. All right, so respectful dialogue. Talking is good. Even bad talking is better than no talking. Why? Because when you don't talk, you can interpret behaviors in a certain way. So you just see someone slapping someone else. Oh, the person who slapped is the obviously aggressor, but you don't know what happened a minute ago before he slapped that person. Maybe the person who got slapped, I don't know, eliminated the slapper's family a minute ago. So that's why you have to, understand certain things and communicate and say, hey, what's going on here? Why did you slap him? What was the motive? And so on. Well, he deserved it. All right, let's see. And I'm quoting again. Their goal is to remove unilateral barriers inherited from the previous US administration that have hindered mutually beneficial trade, economic, and investment cooperation, the ministry stated. The diplomats also discussed ways to resolve the tit-for-tat diplomatic expulsions and consulate closures for recent years. Now, this, what did I tell you? When the three pillars of the American bosses will be a little bit touched, which is the banking system, the military-industrial complex, and the energy sector. When they will be touched a little bit, they will immediately call their boys in Washington, D.C. and said, stop that, let's change. And I think they were attacked. Why? By BRICS, the bank, by these guys with military production. I'm talking about the Russians. And then with the energy sector, the sanctions did not work. So the sanctions did not work. Well, it's true that the energy sector in the U.S. got some money, got big, fat and so on. But still, the Russians did not collapse. So it's time to do something else. On the contrary, the Russians went and tapped new markets that these guys said, oh, we can't go over there. We're going to go to Europe. Okay, go to Europe. A dying Europe, mind you. So that's one. The other one is the tit for tat for diplomatic expulsions. Who started that? Do you remember who started the diplomatic expulsion? Yeah, no, it was not the Russians. It was that great, how do you call them? Articulate. President Obama, that's how they call it, articulate. Let me tell you this. He was very articulate, but he didn't say shit. He was not that, okay? My assessment. My assessment based on what? Based on his statements. Now, he expelled the first Russian diplomats from the West Coast. I think it was Seattle, Washington, or Portland, Oregon, where the Russians had a Russian cultural center and some, how do you call that, consulate over there. And the Russians said, okay, we're going to do the same thing to you. Oh, no, you can't do that. That was after Snowden was unprofessionally lost by the CIA. Yeah, CIA is to blame for unprofessionally, brainlessly losing Edward Snowden in Moscow. It was their fault. That's why diversity, inclusion. That's how they lost Snowden. Remember that one. Not because he was, he was smart. The Russians waited and the baboons in CIA lost him. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just looking into it. So let's see what else is here. A brief readout from the U.S. Department noted that Rubio reiterated Trump's dedication to resolving the conflict in Ukraine. The statement added that the two officials explored potential cooperation on a number of bilateral issues. You got them, so they are good to go. The Moscow said Lavrov and Rubio agreed to maintain regular contact, including coordinating preparations for a meeting between Putin and Trump. Excellent. Next one. This is from Sputnik. Russia Lavrov and US Rubio hold phone talks. So right here what they did. Agreed to maintain communication. The aims to remove unilateral barriers, that's unilateral, that means US barriers, inherited from the previous administration, imbecile Biden, expressed a mutual commitment to engage in pressing international issues, including the settlement of the situations around Ukraine, developments concerning Palestine, not Israel, and broader issues in the Middle East and other regional matters. So that means we got two poles, so it's already at least bipolar world order. Exchange views on ways to promptly end the policy initiated by Obama administration in 2016, okay, that's what I was talking about, which significantly tightened conditions for the functioning of Russian diplomatic missions in the US, prompting reciprocal measures. Okay, that's exactly what I said. Agreed to organize an expert meeting in the near future to coordinate concrete steps for the mutual removal of obstacles to the operations of Russian and US diplomatic missions. Cooperation, good. And the Europeans are left out in the cold. Reaffirmed their readiness to work together on restoring a respectful intergovernmental dialogue in line with the tone set by the presidents. Agreed to maintain regular contacts, including for the participation of a high-level Russian-American meeting. Fantastic. Next one. Let's see what the Ukrainians are saying. New Voice of Ukraine. This is from today, February 16th. U.S. Secretary of State held a phone call with Lavrov. So you see, U.S. Secretary of State, and this is just a guy, Lavrov. Disrespectful? Think so? Well, okay, that's the way they report. This is a new media outlet. It's not like me, a baboon, that can have opinions and all that and make fun and crack jokes around. No, U.S. Secretary of State, that's fantastic, that's his title, with this baboon. Who the fuck is that? Now, let me tell you about this Rubio and Lavrov. I heard Rubio's statements when he was a senator, and I don't think he's a hawk, but nevertheless, how can you hire? Let's say you have a company, and you make fun of a guy and say he's not a good welder, because he's not a good welder. He sucks at welding. And then after 4 years, actually not 4 years, 8 years, you hire that one. Do you think he got better as a welder? Remember Marco Rubio in the Republican primaries, the first one, 2015, for the 2016 elections, faced Donald Trump. Remember what Donald Trump said about Rubio? About the water, give me the water, and he was all sweaty, he got intimidated, and he got all... That means what? He said he doesn't have a poker face. Now you send him now to be your top diplomat to deal with Lavrov, with that Lavrov? Are you crazy? So what changed? Now you can tell me, when in 8 years things happen. Well, not really, because Rubio was not 18 when Trump made that comment on him. He was about 40-some, 48. So at 48, you kind of like ripe. People start wars at 48. All right, and then die at 56. So people do 48, 66. You make the calculation. He didn't start it then. But anyway, people have a different kind of behavior. Nevertheless, Rubio, how can you pick this guy? 8 years ago, you made fun. You can say, well, I mean, it's just elections. No, it was a fact. The guy was all with the water, give me the water, and Trump was making fun of him. And now he's going to face Lavrov. That's me and Rubio, just so you know. I don't know. We'll see what he does. Right? Let's give the man a chance. So let's see. The Secretary of State reaffirmed President's commitments to ending the war in Ukraine. They also discussed potential cooperation on several bilateral issues, Bruce said. All right, and that's it. All right. Let's go to the next one, which comes again from the Ukrainians. Ukrainska Pravda. Again, this is nice. U.S. Secretary of State talks to Russia's foreign minister. Fantastic. That's how you are, balance this guy. This guy's going to eat this guy alive. With what? With diplomacy. That's what it is, and with knowledge. So again, they're going to talk according to Russian foreign ministry. The conversation outlined the mutual willingness to cooperate on topical international issues, including the settlement around Ukraine, the situation around Palestine, and in general in the Middle East and other regional areas. And we have here the Europeans scramble for, a hot shower or bath, because they are left in the cold to warm up. According to Russia Today, on February 16th, Macron calls emergency summit amid Ukraine's peace talks. Warsaw said. So that baboon, the Polish foreign minister, Mr. Sikorski, I would like you to go. I made a lot of videos about Sikorski. Sikorski was working in Great Britain as a media guy. He's married with a woman who also worked in the media in Great Britain, not in Poland, and she's Jewish. It's just a coincidence, but it's okay. So that guy Sikorski, I don't think he works for the Polish people's interest. I don't think so. So Macron said, "Hey, what about me? What about me? No, you stay there in the cold." The Americans and the Russians said, "Where you belong." Macron could have called Putin. Scholz could have called Putin. Starmer could have called Putin. Why didn't they do it? They received the order not to. Or they were too afraid because of what? The Al Capone's retaliatory strike, economic and so on. They could have called. Isn't that strange? And I guarantee you, after Trump speaks and gets in, this guy's going to start, maybe it's good to talk to Putin. How about that? And they will look as oh yeah, we brought Putin back from the cold. No, you are in the cold right now. Putin was never in the cold. He's got the rest of the world to be friendly with. It's just a few countries of you baboons call yourself the international community whenever it's convenient. You pushed out. We're going to isolate Putin, the world. How many? You got United States of America, Al Capone, and then his plantation. Plus the plantation being about 35 countries, NATO member states, plus or intertwined with the European Union, Japan, South Korea, Palau, Zapalau, and Australia, New Zealand, and that's about it. That's all you got. This is about 45 or 43. Let's make it this. You got 150 exactly, or 149 if you take Russia out, who cooperate with Russia. So who isolated who exactly? I mean, it's baboonish. So let's see what Macron tries to... I'm gonna take a shit. It's exactly what Macron does. So, Macron, The European Union needs to respond, quote unquote, to Trump's negotiation style. Got it? The Polish foreign minister said Poland wants to play an important role in Europe because, at once it played a certain kind of role and now it wants to be back. Well, we'll see if they're going to be allowed. Poland is US's Trojan horse in Europe, big time. French, I'm not talking about Germany. Germany is under occupation. That's a different statute. French President Emmanuel Macron has called an emergency summit of European leaders, they are leaders, after Moscow and Washington agreed to hold Ukraine peace talks in Saudi Arabia, sidelining the EU. When I first came to the United States of America, I met a very intelligent person who, had good conversation, intellectual conversation. And he said, probably is well known in the United States of America, this kind of statements, but it was the first time I heard from this gentleman. He's a gentleman. And he said, when America sneezes, Europe catches a cold or something like that. And I said, you just overdo it. You think Americans are too important and so on. That's exactly what it is. All this war in Ukraine was orchestrated, led, and organized by those guys over there. And the Europeans were, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's how it is. And now they say, we're going to oppose the Americans and the Russians. Who, you? What are you talking about? How many troops you got in the United States of America? 0. How many troops US has in Europe? Tens of thousands. So who's under occupation? All right, US President Donald Trump, on Saturday, the country's top diplomats followed up with a phone call discussing preparations for a potential high-level Russian-American summit. Pakaraka, and right here, Sikorsky said, right here, I'm very glad that President Macron has called our leaders to Paris, escorted by Politico. That's going to be Monday, right here. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference, Polish Foreign Minister Radoslav Sikorski welcomed Macron's initiative and confirmed that the summit will take place in France, Moscow. This is like the Paralympics. That's why it is. All right, so according to Sikorski, Polish Prime Minister Donald Trump has accepted the invitation and will travel to France the next week to show our strength and unity. Make me fucking laugh. While the list of invitees was not revealed, The Guardian has reported that UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer will also be attending. Ooh, the heavyweights. Oh my God. Macron has previously insisted on US involvement in negotiations. When I talk about negotiations, you stay out there, telling the Financial Times that Ukraine must lead discussions, they're out too, just so you know, on its own sovereignty. Now it's sovereignty? Okay. How about, did you cry about the Americans occupying Syrian territory for about 10 years, more than 10 years, in northeast of Syria? There were 900 American troops overseeing the sucking of Syrian oil and getting it to Iraq. Where was that oil going to? And that, by the way, Syria was at that time, had a president, had its own political system. It was an independent, sovereign, recognized by the United Nations country. So the United States was over there occupying it. I didn't hear anything about that. You're outraged. You should be respected. Show off, okay? Hypocrisy right there. And they want me to support them? No. But Brussels has a key role in discussing security guarantees and more broadly the security framework for the entire region. Right now, if you really wanted to do that, you wouldn't have jumped or you wouldn't have followed US's orders to do everything US told you. But you didn't. Why? Because you're in a plantation right there picking up sugar cane. And then the British are in the household. And that's a, how do you call it? House servant. It's still a slave, but a house. Tea time, master. Tea time. Come over. And then France brings the mail. France feels how do you call it, insulted, because offended that it's a plantation instead of being like the breeds inside the household here, the servant, household servant. So they bring the mail from the mailbox, from the door, from the road. I brought the mailbox and then, I'm so tired, the French and the Brits. It's time for you to go now. So only I can be the house servant. You go over there. So the French guy is like, goes outside. That's how I see it. And Al Capone comes and sits down and says, shush, you play the violin now. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.